Conspiracy theories, eh? Wait till you get a load of this. Hello, and welcome to Crack Sisters Conspiracies, or a podcast that covers conspiracy theories, mysteries, and all over spooky shit. My name is Cassandra.
And I'm Jackie.
And you are this close to getting it right. But we are
We've done good for a while.
We have, but
it's just because I don't look at you, but today I looked at you.
You made the mistake, and I made the mistake of looking back at your face. So.
That's on you.
Really is. But what's going on? What's up?
I'm tired, Grandpa.
How come you had to work today?
Well, I guess I didn't. My boss and I never go over. I never know, as you know, if holidays are coming up. So he's like, oh, Monday's Labor Day. I went, oh, okay. And he went, well, do you have anything planned? He's like, it's not like Memorial Day. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, oh, okay. And then that's where we left it. So I'm like, I assume that means I'm working. So I got up at fucking 7:30, started working at 8. And I'm like, he hasn't texted me. Normally he texts me between 8 and 9 at some point. Mondays are my busiest day. So I'm like, I'll just get a couple of hours of work done. And then at some point he texts me, he's like, hey, thanks for getting work done. I know it's a holiday. You don't have to work. I'm like, well, that would have been nice.
That would have been nice for sure.
But he has COVID, so he's miserable. So it makes up for it.
Makes you feel a little bit better. Good golly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we haven't done anything crazy this weekend either, but that's okay.
Well, I have. I didn't even get to that point. That was
what did you do?
I feel like I've just your social battery last episode was empty. Mine is so past empty. So on Friday evening, Alex took me to the Rusty Butthole. Which is not its real name.
Saw
it's
something about
that on Bethel Island, which they call Methyl Island because it's just a bunch of meth heads, which I can attest is correct. But that was fun. So we met with his friends and we were out till 11 o'clock at night.
Oh,
45-minute drive from our house.
Oh my God.
So I'm just falling asleep at the bar. I'm like, sorry, because I don't want to be here anymore. But I didn't want to make Alex sleep because he's having fun.
Right.
And then yesterday, what day are we on? No, today's Monday. Saturday.
Today's Monday.
And by we, I mean I, spent all day reorganizing our garage because we bought those black and yellow tubs and the things that they go on. So I've been doing that all 3 days. And then yesterday on Sunday, we went to a barbecue of those people that we met at the bar last weekend. It sounds like we go out a lot. We really don't. And I stayed for 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I would like to go home now. And Alex is like, yeah, just take the truck. You can come get me later. Do you want to know what time he came home?
What time did he come home?
3:30 in the morning.
He would have been staying the night or Uber.
Well, so I texted him at 10. I said, I'm about to go to bed. So if you want me to come pick you up, I will. Otherwise, you're responsible for your own way home. And he's like, no, I'll get an Uber. So that's what he did.
Okay. Yeah. Because there is not a chance in hell that I would be able to rally at 3:30 in the morning.
I mean, I could, but really don't want to unless it's an emergency.
Well, that's just it. Those days are behind me. So.
And then, today I've just spent all day organizing the garage. And do you want to play a little game?
Okay.
Do you want to guess how many dead mice we found in our garage?
Ooh, in your new build that you haven't even lived in for a year.
This is a 3-day span of me cleaning out the garage.
I'm going to go with 6.
Ooh, very close. 5.
Oh, that is 5 too many.
It's 5 too many. So our HOA sent out a letter a while ago, we know there's a rodent problem. We're working on it. I'm like, that's weird. And then little did I know we were part of it. We have a bug company that comes out every month.
An exterminator.
And we're like, hey, apparently we have mice. So can you check for that? So they put out some traps and there was a mouse in every single trap, but they're babies. And that's how I know, even though I knew that when Danny came over at the old house, that was 100% a rat because that thing was the size of a fucking football.
Yes.
And these are little babies, but I didn't want to come to grips with that there was a rat in my house. So now it's just baby mice everywhere.
I've had blocked out the memory of the rodent that escaped in your life.
I will never forget.
That was 100% a rat, though. When you think back to the footage of it, leaping back at you.
And the heft at which I kicked it towards the wall was very heavy.
It was a dense rodent. So.
So I'm having Vietnam flashbacks.
Whatever you do, though, do not throw them in your trash can. Even if, did you at least put it in a bag? Oh, okay. In the future, do not put anything dead in your trash can. Make use of those dumpsters that are available to you because it will never not smell like death. I am just
I
telling you.
mean, they don't smell great.
No,
I
but
can tell you
it's
that
gonna
much.
like give off a dead animal funk. It took us far too long and too many attempts at cleaning to try to get rid of the dead animal smell, and it still didn't work. Mom and dad just went through this recently with the dead bunny that dad offed in the backyard.
You know what I'm gonna do on
Yeah.
trash day? I'm gonna switch trash can.
Okay, so we are the people that label our trash cans because assholes like you have tried to.
Mine were labeled, but it didn't stick. So, and one of my neighbors stole my fucking trash can, I think unintentionally. So it's a little payback.
I mean, it's happened. Our neighbor accidentally stole ours, and then Evan spray painted everything in like bright green spray paint, like what our numbers are. But anywho, don't you love neighbors and neighborhoods and home ownership issues?
No. And also, I think there's something wrong with our water because all of our water smells like farts.
What? Yeah, sulfur water is probably not a.
I've just given up on life this weekend. Like, I took a shower and I went, God, that smells. And it wasn't me. And then yesterday we did like a load of laundry and I went in to change it. And as soon as I opened the laundry room door, I'm like, this smells like fucking sewer farts.
There's probably a bunch of dead mice in your pipes.
You know what? That actually might be it because I refuse to figure it out. It's not my problem right now.
That is unfortunate, and I feel for you.
What are you covering today? Did you stay with your topic?
I did. Yeah, I just decided to push through it. And the topic that I'm going to speak about, just know that your problems aren't as bad as the people that are impacted by what we're going to talk about.
I mean, I don't know. That's pretty spectacular on my end.
Those rats could have like 3 heads instead. So just consider yourself lucky. The mice, excuse me. I'm getting your rodents mixed up. There's been so many.
Wrong house.
But yes, I was gonna talk about the Chernobyl disaster because I had thought about it not that long ago, and I really would like to rewatch the show. They have the mini series on.
Oh, so you did watch it before?
I've watched it before. I watched it when it first came out a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was really good.
It was so good, but it made me so anxious and I was so nervous the whole time watching it. And it was very unsettling and uncomfortable. So they did a really good job achieving that. And I would like to rewatch it again in theory, but I don't know that I could sit through that a second time.
It's only like 4 episodes though, isn't it?
I don't remember how long it was, but I just don't know that I want to put myself.
But you know how it ends.
I do know how it ends. I knew how it ended going into it, but it's still, they did a great job building that stressful atmosphere.
I see.
They also did a much better job explaining the science behind things because I am not a nuclear scientist. So
Not?
I'm not.
Are you drinking right now?
I am not.
Okay. So you might have a chance at this.
We will see. No, I am drinking pineapple flavored sparkling water.
Ooh.
It's okay. I don't know.
I'm not a big Soleil fan.
I like Soleil. Certain flavors are like hits, like the cucumber melon. That's the best. But anywho. So yes, we're going to talk about the Chernobyl disaster. So it's a historical event that took place not as far back as you would think in history. I don't know about you, but when I think historical events, I think of things that happened like more than 100 years ago, not something that happened recently. But it's been only 38 years since it took place. Yep.
Oh.
I know. I was born the year after.
So what year did this take place?
It took place in 1986.
Oh my gosh.
See, I thought it was something like gun to my head. If I didn't look it up, I would have thought it was way earlier.
Yeah, me too, actually. Oh, that's
early 1900s. But nope. It was less than 40 years ago. But the Chernobyl disaster is one of only 2 nuclear energy accidents that have been rated at the maximum severity level on the International Nuclear Event Scale. Mm-hmm. Do you know what the other one was?
I feel like I do. Can you give me a hint?
It took place in a country that I'm going to be visiting.
Okay, Japan.
Uh-huh.
But no, I don't know it.
It was the 2011, so even more recently, Fukushima nuclear accident in Japan.
No, guess I didn't know that.
So overall, it was a really big deal. And it was very disastrous. It was actually the worst nuclear disaster in history and has also been the most expensive disaster in human history, with the cost estimated at around $700 billion. That's with a B. And I've mentioned it before, but conceiving of how big $1 billion is, like, I don't think people realize.
I know. Have you ever seen that video where it tries to describe it based on a grain of rice? If a grain of rice is $1 million, it's astronomical to comprehend. And seeing it just as rice is so crazy.
It's inconceivable. Now think about
inconceivable.
And if you think about our national debt in the trillions, which is just a made up number now.
It's not real.
So back to Chernobyl. What the hell happened? And I just need to preface this. Every time I say Chernobyl, I want to say Chernobyl. Have you seen the movie Hot Tub Time Machine?
Yeah.
So they have an energy drink that they knock over into the hot tub, which fries everything and takes them back to the 80s. And it was called Chernobyl.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
It might have been Chernobyl, but they called it Chernobyl.
That's really funny.
And so that's all I can think about. So if it slips out, that's why we can just glaze over that.
Okay.
So like I said, everything that took place was like pages and pages of shit that I just didn't comprehend. So I'm giving the Cliff's Notes versions because I also don't feel like most of our readers would be able to understand either. No offense, but no, you're
all the offense taken.
So, there was a scheduled test that was being conducted at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, and that was supposed to be assessing the steam turbine's ability to power the emergency feed water pumps in case there was an external loss of power to the plant.
Okay.
So essentially, they were checking the backup system that they had as a contingency plan to make sure that everything was in good order. It was a very big deal to have it scheduled as very regimented, like step by step what you're supposed to do. And the test was supposed to be conducted during the day shift. And everyone that was supposed to be there knew that this was happening. So everyone had planned and prepared for it. And they even ended up bringing in a specialized team of electrical engineers to be present during the test, which was only supposed to take 1 minute to conduct. So it was a very quick thing. Just a lot of steps had to be taken in the right order and executed properly. So there was an external electrical grid issue that had taken place that needed to be addressed first. It was unexpected, and so it kind of derailed their plan. They're like, oh, they lost power. They need to deal with that before they can go back to their test. And the test had to be postponed, but they were still planning on doing it the same day. They didn't want to reschedule it for later. So they were still going to go ahead with it just at a later point. But during this time, there was a shift change. So the day shift that was prepared and had planned to do this, they were getting ready to leave. An evening shift was supposed to be coming on board.
Wait, so there was a power outage, which caused them to temporarily not do the test, but the test was there in case there was a power outage?
So the power outage that they're testing for was the power to the pumps. It was completely separate. Like, it didn't impact.
Oh, okay.
It was still functional.
But that seems like the perfect time to test it.
You would think, but no, externally, there was a power issue. It didn't affect them. They just had to get delayed.
I see.
So evening shift was coming on board. The people that were there supposed to be there were no longer there. And it lasted, the postponement even went through evening shift. So they just sat around doing what they normally do and didn't get to the test either. And so they were getting ready to leave, and night shift was coming in. So the middle of the night shift.
Yeah.
They were coming in at midnight, and unfortunately, night shift was the unlucky team that got stuck with carrying out this
it always
test.
Works that way.
They had no time, no preparation, and it was just good luck and Godspeed is essentially what they were told.
So now is it just night shift or graveyard that's doing it with no engineers in there helping out like they had planned for day shift?
I don't believe the same engineering team was present.
Oh.
So I think because it had been
all day.
Yeah, the entire day. And so many people
just wait for the next fucking day.
You would think there was a lot of questions like that at a government level of like,
okay,
why did this happen? Why did it get executed? Why didn't you wait? Kind of thing. So yeah, this was a massive failure in planning and execution. That's really a big chunk of what it boils down to. So while they were performing the test, again, the night shift that essentially had no idea what they were doing, There was an unexpected and accidental drop in the nuclear reactor power. And per the test plan, the drop in power that they had was supposed to be a gradual thing. So they were supposed to wind it down, turn it off, and then turn it back on. And instead, it just went kunk all the way down to the bottom, which is not what it was supposed to do. And so that then prompted the plant operators to restart the reactor because the power got completely taken down. And so they needed to bring it back up. Now, each of the Chernobyl reactors had 3 backup diesel generators in the event of a total power loss, though those generators take about 60 to 75 seconds to get fully up to speed in order to start pumping the coolant in at the proper flow to keep things from overheating.
Okay.
And the coolant is essential because that's what is ultimately going to prevent the reactor core from overheating and then having a full-blown meltdown. And so reactor number 4 is where this test was taking place, and this was the problem child that fucked everything up.
So it was during the test that
it was during the test.
It just went, okay. Well, it's a good thing they're testing for it then, I guess.
Yes, but the test was not going according to plan, and it wasn't being done properly. The coolant flow, it needed to keep it from overheating just for this one reactor. To give you some context, over 12 million gallons of water per hour is what needs to pump through. So it went down to nothing. Then they had to bring the power back up to start surging that much water through everything. And so it was taking time.
Yeah.
The problem started when they were restarting the reactor. So they restarted it incorrectly, and they were using a prohibited control rod configuration. So instead of sticking to the plan, they did something else. And the control rods are what are used in the reactors to control the rate of the chain reaction of the nuclear fuel, which is either uranium or plutonium. And because they did it wrong, they didn't use the correct rod configuration, it resulted in the reactor itself being highly unstable. And so because of its instability, other things started to give way. And so this started leading to steam explosions in the reactors. And then that ultimately ended up triggering a full-blown meltdown. And that happened due to everything just overheating because they just failed to do what they should.
I would have just gone home.
I would have too. I would have either gone home or just found the first closet I could fit in and cried. And then steam explosions are really scary. Steam itself is very scary to me because I'm scared I'm just gonna like boil all of my skin off. But it's like a big deal. They can like blow holes through walls when things explode under those, types of pressure. So the explosions ended up destroying the containment building that the reactor was in. And then a fire broke out in the reactor core that ended up spreading radioactive contaminant all across the USSR and Europe. So It was not like a little thing. It blew it out for miles. And the meltdown ended up triggering an emergency operation with the goal of trying to put out all of the fires that sprung up, as well as attempting to stabilize the reactor, which had just melted down completely. Where the Chernobyl power plant is, it's kind of its own existence. It's not in a particular location like a city, but it's just on the outskirts of this place called Pripyat. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that was like the closest place to it that had civilization. And after the reactor melted down and everything kind of exploded, that city wasn't immediately evacuated. And the majority of the townspeople didn't even have any sort of clue that something completely catastrophic had happened. They were just going about living their lives. And so within just a few hours of everything happening, dozens of people within the city of Pripyat started feeling really sick, though. And then they started going to the hospital because they're like, what the fuck? I don't know what's going on. Now, Pripyat is part of Ukraine, but the plant was governed by the authorities of Moscow in Russia. So they don't have the same organizations and governments that they're following orders from. So the Ukrainian government didn't get any of the information to share with the townspeople of Pripyat because it was held up with the Moscow government. So it wasn't until much later in the day, hours and hours and hours, that they had the information to then start executing an evacuation plan. They did eventually start bussing the townspeople out the following day. So, like, more than 24 hours after everything started. But by that point, many people had already been hospitalized and a few had already died from the radiation exposure.
Yeah.
Now, radioactive exposure is absolutely terrifying.
I think that scares me. Yeah.
I think that's what gave me the most unease when I was watching the show. Seeing the initial like people in the hospital being sick and then just that impending sense of doom. Like, is it going to be my turn?
Yeah. And like watching the workers who didn't necessarily understand what was happening in the moment go downstairs to where the reactor is. And they're like, why are my eyes burning? I'm just trying to turn something off. And it's like, oh my God, you're just slowly being melted alive and you have no idea.
It's like the opposite of being turned into the Hulk. Instead of having all that radiation exposure work for you, it was just turning your insides to goo, essentially.
Yeah,
but yeah,
and superpower.
Like, I feel like that would be part of their training, that like, what we do is incredibly dangerous. Don't go anywhere near it. And they just go full on exposure. And it was awful. So it was estimated that the radiation released from Chernobyl was 400 times more than combined the atomic bombing of both Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Jesus Christ.
Yes. So acute radiation syndrome, ARS, or radiation sickness is awful from what it sounds like. So symptoms can start presenting within just an hour of exposure and can last for months. So like everyone that started feeling sick without knowing it, it's because they got blasted with all of this radiation and it took no time at all for them to start feeling sick.
Yeah.
So early symptoms are usually nausea, vomiting, and loss of appetite, which on the surface sounds like literally the start of anything, but it's like very extreme. And then eventually the skin starts to turn red and becomes really itchy. And then you get these big blisters all over your skin because you've essentially just fried yourself from the inside out.
Yeah.
And in the case of Chernobyl specifically, people's skin had been irradiated with high energy beta particles because there are different types of radiation, like gamma rays, beta rays. And so with the beta particles, that resulted in people's skin peeling off. Yeah. So it's like just degloving and all of that.
I think sloshing off is like a better
my God. That word it just makes it so much worse. But I just picture like going to like shake someone's hand and like
and it just comes
their
off.
finger glove coming off.
Dude, one time I had to transport this lady. She was really old with necrotizing fasciitis, which is the flesh-eating disease.
Yes.
And not only did she smell fucking horrendous, so I'm trying not to throw up on her because I'm stuck in the back and there's no air. They have a vent, but it does not fucking work. But like, I don't know how old she was, but it looked like she was a skeleton. It was over her face and different parts of her body, but like it had eaten her eyelids.
Ew.
And I'm like, are you alive? And obviously she was, but like, she didn't talk, but she looked like a skeleton. And like part of her eyelids were gone. So you could like see behind, and it was so traumatizing.
Oh my God. How did she sleep?
Oh my God, that's a good question. I don't know.
Like, I have so many questions, but that was the first one. I'm sure that's like the least of their concern at that point if your fucking eyelids are gone.
It was just so gross. It was really fascinating. I've had a couple cases of it, and I was like terrified to touch them because it is very contagious. But the smell, I will never forget that smell. It's such a specific dead human flesh smell.
And for those of us who have not been exposed to the smell of decaying people, if you could try to describe it in more common sense that people would know, or a combination, how would you describe that?
It's really hard. It's like
closest thing you can come to.
Okay. So like, when you go to the dump and it's just that like overwhelming smell. So it's like that.
Okay.
But you taste it in the back of your throat.
Like it's got a thickness to it.
Spicy. And it just smells like death. Like even if you've never smelled death, you would smell it and you'd be like, oh, I get it.
You know what that is.
So it's just like a combination of all of that.
That sounds awful.
It's great.
How many times, if you had to guess, just put a number out there. How many times have you encountered decaying or dead or,
Oh God. Necrotizing fasciitis specifically 3.
Okay.
Dead people 1 million. Decomposed probably
1 million.
In the various stages of decomp. Probably like 6. Not great.
I feel like that's a lot.
It's just like you get them in the summer and they're in trailers or they haven't, no one's heard from them. I had one where he was newly dead. We broke into his house because his friend was convinced that he was dead and he was right. And it was the middle of summer. It was graveyard, so it wasn't that hot, but it had stayed so hot in the house. And I was stuck upstairs with the dude until the coroner got there. So I just turned on his air conditioning because I'm like, I'm going to die of this heat and this smell, and he's not going to pay for it. What does it matter? So I blasted his air conditioning to try to help.
So back in the first apartment that we lived in Moore Park, I don't know if you remember. So we were like on the second floor, and our balcony, we had a neighbor next to us, like a balcony over.
Yeah.
And he was cool. He was this old dude who used to like come out and smoke, and he'd be like, hey, how's it going? And we would like chat. And like it became our thing. Like we would go out on the balcony, we would chat with him. And then I noticed like after a couple of days that like I hadn't seen him. And then I'm like, it's weird. Maybe he's out of town. But then I remembered like, he has no family. He lives here by himself. And so after a few more days, I was getting very concerned. So I was going to go down and have them do like a wellness check, like have the office do it. But as I had gone down, they're like, yeah, someone actually beat you to it, because the neighbors on his side of the building in the hallway, they were complaining about this awful smell. And it's because they found him in his chair in his living room. And I'm like, I knew it. I just felt like something was off, but I didn't smell it because I was still far enough away. Good. So I
kind of wish you could smell it. It's just so specific.
Yeah.
But I hated those calls because I'm driving. I'm like, this dude's going to be fucking, like, I could just tell that they're going to be dead. And I'm like, it's going to be such a long day and it's so hot.
Such an inconvenience for you.
But that's why I loved new people, because once I got to a certain point, I had so many people underneath me, seniority wise. I'm like,
just pawn all the dead
this is
people.
You. I will vomit everywhere. So you got to go, and hopefully you can hold your stomach because I can't.
You've paid your dues. You know.
Now a quick word from our sponsor. Do you live in the Bay Area? Are you in need of a CPR class for work or just to gain the knowledge? Well, look no further, because CPR Education has you covered. They host public classes every Saturday in Pleasant Hill, ranging from CPR and first aid, BLS for healthcare providers, infant essentials for new and expecting parents, and EMSA-approved courses for licensed childcare providers. Whatever need you have, CPR Education has a solution. Go to cpredu.com and use code CRACKED for 20% off any public class. That's CRACKED, and you will get 20% off any class of your choosing. CPR Education, keeping people together.
Anyway, back to sloshing skin.
Yes, sloughing, by the way, not sloshing.
I knew I said it wrong, but then
GH. Yeah.
Somebody didn't hear it.
But I knew exactly what you meant. But yes, skin peeling off. But additionally, high levels of radiation exposure can fuck with your DNA also, resulting in mutations. But the most common thing that high doses of radiation causes?
Cancer.
Yes, cancer. That's exactly it. That's what a good deal of people ended up developing because of the exposure. And contrary to popular belief, because I'm sure a lot of people out there assume that because of the DNA mutations, that if you were irradiated and you were pregnant during this time, that you were going to have significantly deformed babies. And that was ultimately not likely the case.
Oh, interesting.
It impacted some wildlife in the area that were drinking from the water supply and all of that. And there were some mutations that resulted from there, but it wasn't a common thing to have a DNA mutation in humans that were pregnant. Although that didn't stop the government from like, hey, maybe you should just like abort your baby just in case.
Oh, God.
So like a lot of people end up doing that because they were scared of the what if before they really.
I didn't know that wasn't a thing. I would assume the same thing.
Yeah, no, it wasn't as much of a concern as a lot of people made it out to be.
Have you ever seen the movie Chernobyl? Like
a
horror movie?
Yes. Okay.
I love that one.
No. Well, I was watching a scary movie the other day. It was not at all related to that, but it made me think of you. And now I'm going to have to try to remember it to see if you'd seen it, but I really liked it.
Oh, that's good.
Anywho. Okay. Back to Chernobyl, the explosion. It ended up killing 2 of the plant engineers, which I'm surprised it was only 2.
Right?
Because there was like a good deal of people like on all of the shifts within the plant. The plant is huge. There's a lot of people that have to operate that place. And it severely burned 2 others. And those were the ones that were closest to the reactor when it exploded, all the steam explosions and the fires. But overall, there were 237 workers in the plant that were hospitalized, with 134 of them showing signs of acute radiation syndrome.
Can you imagine processing that workers' comp claim?
No, I think they would just throw in the towel. Like, my God, that would be a fucking nightmare.
I know.
I would be really bummed if I had some catastrophic injury because of work, especially given what I do. Like, if I'm going to be taken out, if I'm at work, no, thank you. I want to go out somewhere else.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind.
Now that I'm trying to think of what physical hazards I might be exposed to in the office.
You guys got too drunk and fell down a flight of stairs, even though you're on the
That's a different kind of liability, and I don't think
Yeah, I don't really know what would
a coffee burn.
Ooh, maybe. Or you like walked into, because your office is glass. Maybe you like walked into it thinking it was open.
Possibly, and then gave myself a concussion or brain
like your face open. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. I'll have to start thinking about that a little bit more. But anywho, of the workers that had ARS, 28 of them died within only 3 months of the explosion, and 14 more workers died over the following decade, some of which had acute radiation syndrome, but some didn't. Though the causes of death for those, while they might have had some exposure, they weren't necessarily related to the radiation exposure. They just happened to be present and then ended up dying later. So they can't really be linked in that sense. And as of 2011, there were 15 childhood thyroid cancer deaths that had been attributed to the disaster.
Oh, okay.
There is some discrepancy in the reported deaths overall as a result of the meltdown. The United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation estimated that there were fewer than 100 official deaths that had been linked to the disaster as a result. But there was a separate 2000, your face is...
I call bullshit.
Yeah, the 2006 study done by the World Health Organization estimated that there have been approximately 9,000 cancer-related deaths and other things in the Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia areas, which to me, I feel like is probably a more accurate representation because there were entire cities and towns and communities that were exposed, and it went across different countries and shit. Like,
and 238 or whatever workers were just affected and had to go to the hospital.
Correct. And they were the ones that were right there. And
I'm like, that alone is over 100. So
yes.
I know they didn't all die, but yeah, that's just bullshit.
Yeah. The city of Pripyat, which was essentially where the meltdown took place, it's been abandoned. And by December of 1986, there was a massive steel and concrete structure known as the Chernobyl nuclear power plant sarcophagus. They ended up building that. And the purpose of that was to cover the nuclear reactor building, number 4, as a means to limit the amount of radioactive contamination to the surrounding environment. So they were trying to like put a lid on it and keep it from irradiating the area further, because even though it melted down and it's no longer in use, that plutonium or uranium that's in that core is still alive. It doesn't die. Well, like it does, but it takes a really long time for that stuff to die.
But how many years later did they put this lid on it?
So this was just a few months after everything.
Oh,
so
okay. I thought it was multiple years later. Oh,
No. Like it happened in like the spring of 1986, and by the end of the year, they had constructed the sarcophagus to cover it.
That's better.
So they did move in relatively good order to try to contain it. The location of the sarcophagus, it's known as the exclusion zone. So like you can't go anywhere near that place. Otherwise you're going to fucking die.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, after only 10 years, though, the sarcophagus structure began to deteriorate.
Oh, wow.
And additional measures needed to be taken. And so, just for context, the internal radiation levels within the structure were estimated to be as high as 10,000 roentgens per hour. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
I think so.
But that's the older legacy unit of measurement to determine radiation exposure. A normal dose, 500 roentgens over 5 hours, is what they would expect. This was 10,000 per hour. And so they ended up covering the sarcophagus. So they are just doing this like Russian doll.
Yes.
Oh, that's really funny considering what
It's in Russia. Yeah, that's interesting.
They just put another covering on it with a new confinement structure in 2017. And so this is all being done with the goal of removing all of the reactor debris over time. But the estimated completion date isn't until 2065.
And who the fuck wants to sign up for that job?
Nobody. Although there are a good deal of people who want to go on like excursions and vacations and stuff to go to the Chernobyl site. Why? I don't
want a third eyeball in the center of my head.
Yeah, I don't want to be a Simpsons character. Like it's probably why they're all yellow. It's because they're glowing from the, you know.
And we're all gonna get cancer anyway. So why risk
we don't
it
need to
for-
expedite the process.
Exactly.
Like, just let it take me naturally. 30, 40, 50 years from now. I don't know. I don't want to be super old when I die. I know we've talked about this before too.
50 years from now puts you
that's gonna make me old. That's gonna put me
old.
87. I don't know that I want to be alive at 87. But to their credit, I know some people that are like well into their 90s, and talk to them, you wouldn't even know.
Yeah, it all just depends, I guess.
I don't feel like I'm gonna be one of those people though.
I think I'll live pretty long. Alex not gonna live because he's like a Great Dane. He's gonna die young.
That is true. His heart's gonna give out on
the bigger
him
you are, the quicker you die, unfortunately.
And like you are gonna just live out of spite. I feel like you're just not gonna want to go, or maybe you do, but you're just gonna keep hanging on.
Yeah,
it's like
I'll try to go, but it just won't happen for me.
I don't remember who it was. There was a woman. She was like one of the oldest women. She was like 115, and they're like, "What's your secret?" She's like, "I drink Dr. Pepper every day. I smoke cigarettes, and I stay away from men." So
there you go. That'll do it.
It's the stress. The stress is what's gonna get you in the end. So reduce the stress levels in your life. But you know, I'm convinced my husband's gonna kick the bucket well before he should. He feels like he's dying every day. So it's either going to be you and me living together until our, you know, final days, or I'm going to go all Grey Gardens with my child and I'll just live with her.
Okay, you need to come up with better solutions.
But yeah, so that was the nuts and bolts, the Cliff's Notes of the Chernobyl disaster, the worst disaster in human history. It sounds awful, and I don't want to leave our continent. I'm scared.
And weren't they trying to, they being, I don't know who the they is, maybe the government or the engineers or whatever, but weren't they trying to like downplay it? And they kept saying, no, it didn't happen. It was just this, or it was this, but it wasn't the reactor. No, there's no human life. Like they kept downplaying it, and they didn't want to listen to any evidence.
It was downplaying and finger pointing and not wanting to accept blame, not wanting to accept the fact that you have this massive thing that is taking place not only in your local area, but is kind of spreading into a bigger area and is a disaster. Like no one wants to be in charge and have to deal with that. So it's just like, no, we're just, it's not that bad.
I'm looking to see what I want to cover.
I know. So that's why I was pausing while you were doing that. I was looking at my nails. I got a new nail shape. So I'm trying.
I know I saw. Are they toffee nails?
They're what?
Oh, are those almond?
No, they're like small coffins. It's hard to tell.
That's what I just said.
Of coffin almondy mix. But I got little nail holders so I can do artwork on them first, let them dry, and I have a fresh set.
That's fun. The one thing I'm missing is just the UV light. Speaking of radiation, so I can just blast my fingers and then I can do it myself. I have everything else I need though.
Make sure you put sunscreen on your hands before you do that.
That's a good point.
Yes. Because that's really the main reason I haven't done like a gel, because I don't want to stick my fingers in the lamp so much. Because your hands give you away when you get old. I don't want crepey.
I already got kind of fucking busted hands. Like they're just covered in scars and shit. So might as well add some wrinkles.
I don't want hand cancer.
On top of all the other cancers we're gonna get.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to cover the McDonald's ice cream machine scandal.
The fact that it's always fucking broken and they're never clean.
There's like a whole like story to it.
Okay, let's do that.
That's what I'm going to cover.
McDonald's. That's the I'm loving it, right? That's McDonald's?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't Why are you looking at me like that?
You act like you've never. Oh my god, is that the one with the arches or the M? Like you're acting like you've never heard of McDonald's before.
Okay, that it did come across that way. That was not my intention. I'm like, my husband stops there every single day, much to my dismay, and I yell at him constantly. Well, actually, I don't yell at him. We are not a yelling family, but
Okay.
but anywho, okay. So yes, that's what you'll talk about. What was I flipping through? It was like Tubi, that McDonald's movie with Michael Keaton is on there. Have you watched that? Like the story?
Oh,
of it?
the like. No, I haven't.
I think it's interesting. Unrelated to your ice cream machine.
Oh, it's McDonald's. It's kind of related. Okay.
Well, cool. I know you're going to be hopefully visiting in a few weeks, but I don't know. Is our goal to try to get a recording in at some point too? Okay. That's going to be a jam-packed Saturday, let me tell you.
Well, we can do it after Grayson's game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Her game's 45 minutes, but she
that's good.
is beyond stoked at the mere thought of you being able to attend one of her football games.
Oh, yeah. That'll be fun. So, yeah, if we record my episode this weekend, that would put you as the next.
God damn it. I have to be prepared. Okay, fine. I'll get something pulled together. But in the meantime, I have a reminder on my phone that I've been ignoring because I need to dedicate some time to TikTok. I'm sorry. You've been so good and diligent about giving me your timestamps so I can do little clips, but I will work on that. But our other forms of social media, you can find us at our Instagram. We have a Facebook, we have an X, our Patreon that has some exclusive content that you can subscribe to, maybe some goodies and merch later on down the road. We do have a website, crackedsistersconspiracies.com, and you can always send us an email at crackedsistersconspiracies@gmail.com with episode suggestions. But yeah, reach out to us on our socials, give us a follow, give us a listen. And yeah, anything else?
No.
No, I think that was it. So with that, I'm going to say stay cracked, y'all.
And have a great day.